We've got the power. Hey, Jason. Hey, Dave. Yeah, the nut is at it again. A slightly different view. Actually, a completely different view. Hey, Skull Girl. Barn full of trains. Holy cow. Man, everybody just jumps from one live stream to the next. Oh, man. Hey, John, I am sorry that I didn't get a chance to catch up with you guys before you started that stream. I would have gladly helped out, but life gets in the way sometimes. Hey, Dave. Oh man. So what's going on, Track Gang? Yeah, it is what it is. It is what it is. Yeah, and just so everybody knows, I did mention on John filling in for Vinny. I normally do live streams the last Sunday of the month at 8 p.m. However, this month I wasn't watching, and I've got a bit of a conflict. I may end up moving that up a week. I have to take a look and see how things play out. But I'll keep everybody informed. Of course, I'll put out my like I normally do, and I know the camera is up there. I'll put out yeah, a notification video like I normally do to let you all know when STS number 5 is going to happen. If it happens this month, it may not happen until August, but we'll see. We will see. Man, this is great. I got 8 people in here, and I've only been on the air for 2.5 minutes. Cool. Hey, Rodney, welcome aboard, sir, as usual. Oh man, yeah, I got a real cast of characters in here tonight. I like this. Oh man. So what is Ray up to tonight? Well, I'm up to about. Never mind. That's an old joke. I've done that one way too many times. Um, as you can see, as you can see, we've got a slightly different view, and I was really hoping maybe Sparky would pop in here because this building that's sitting out front that he talked about last week in his live stream is the old textile building that on my layout is actually going to be a fascia flat, and it's going to be the Atlantic Copper and Brass, which happens to be a company that was in Baltimore. That was not a rail serve industry, of course. On my layout, it is, but yeah, I wanted to show him. I mean, there's really nothing to this building at all. So, but anyway, we're looking at the south end of the Weikert Industrial Area, which is this area, or this whole green area here is the Weikert Industrial Railroad. Its industries are a gravel dealer, what will be a scrap dealer. These are the inbound and the outbound tracks. Right now, I've got a couple of cars sitting on the outbound waiting for the next train to come in, which is the reason why we're here. As I talked about a couple of weeks or about a week ago or so, I moved my maintenance away equipment up here. So I actually did a little bit of a change. Last night, I actually moved the maintenance away gondola over to the scrap dealer. I'm not. I've got 2 tracks over there for this scrap dealer. I was just playing around with that. This area has gone from, and if everybody that's followed me knows that at one point in time there was supposed to be a huge switchback over here that was going to go to a log loader and a coal tipple. And I liked the idea. It just wasn't going to work out. So I pulled it. Hey, Joe, what's happening? I'm not sure who else has popped in here, but actually, it looks like that may have gotten everybody so far. That's cool. So anyway, I did start another run last night because I made a couple of changes. Not track wise. I went ahead and I talked about in blog 28 where, and it's going to be kind of hard to see, but we'll try it. Up here is that drop down section. So this hill is made to come off, and then this section actually folds under so I can get into that closet over there. And I originally had put rear railers on the front, and I just had track in the back. Of course, when I was down here messing with this the other night, I went ahead and realized that I actually had soldered the rear railers in on the front side. So I'm going to have to desolder them and just drop track in there, because what I am going to do with that, instead of doing the re-railers, I'm just going to take sections of track and I'm just going to cut back the ties enough that I can slide a rail joiner off onto the piece that actually is going to be a part of the folding section. That, unlike the swing bridge that I had on my old layout, I don't have to have that up every time, because that section is probably only going to get dropped once and then set back up once, and then that's going to be it. And that's only if I have to get into that closet to do anything. So, who's Rodney? Oh, man. Hey, M&M Shortline. Welcome aboard. Yeah, that was really great. I'm glad that somebody picked up for Vinny. I'm still praying for him, hoping everything turns out all right. I know, I know he's had some problems, and I hope he can get through this one too, and he gets better, and he can get back to showing us all up with his scratch builds. Yeah, I mean, here it is. Rodney was doing the marathon this week, man. I was I was waiting to see if he was going to go for third. Way to go, Rodney. That was good too, filling in for Sparky, then doing your own show last night. Dude. Yeah, John, I think it would be. I know that Johnny Reb does shows every week where it's a community. Everybody, whoever wants to pop in, pops in, that kind of thing. But I'd like to. Hey, humanity, how you doing, Heath? I would like to see maybe a live. More of us that have live streams. And I'm sorry, I'm looking at the chat instead of the camera, guys. I'm sorry, it's one of my downfalls. I'm doing good, sir. I'm doing good. Hey, Jerry. But I would like to see some of us that do live streams on a regular basis. I think that might be something that we could start doing. Maybe is just having some of these other folks just pop in, and like Jerry was saying, at the end of the show, where Wilmer finds these guys that are doing some outstanding work, that are just getting started on YouTube or just don't have the subscribers. Those would be the guys, I think, doing something, having a panel type live show. That would be kind of cool. Maybe that's something we all could kind of work on. I don't know. Maybe I'm off in the distance or something. Anywho. Oh, man. Exactly. Especially, especially now, John. I think under normal circumstances, most of us would be like, you know what, I just want to do my live show what I'm doing, and be done. But with the showstopper and the fact that we've all been cooped up for months, even though we're starting to get out now. The train shows are gone. We haven't been able to do those. We can't get into the museums; those are basically been closed. And now we've got some states that are dealing with a second wave of this, and who knows what's going to happen. If we're all going to be stuck like this for the next next 6 months, I'm going to go absolutely nuts. But it's I just it's just like I said, just because of the times. And I think that wouldn't be a bad thing. Have and not only that, but kind of like the community roundhouse, which is still I love that idea. It's a semi live thing, and boom, that's really cool. I enjoyed that this week, guys. I really appreciate you having me in. But well, yeah, thanks, John. And on that note. Oh, yes, people have already told me I've lost my marbles a long time ago. What you see is what you get. Well, thank you. Appreciate that. And believe it or not, Heath, that was actually the Freudian ship, not slip, ship. The story, just a little off topic here, real quick. I used to own a boat. I owned the same boat from 1997. No, I bought my first boat in '95. Had that till '96. Bought the second boat in '96. So I had my second boat from '96 until 2015, I think it was. Um, so I had it for almost, and it was a great boat. It was a 26-foot Wellcraft. The guy that owned it before me was a psychiatrist of all things. And by the name of the boat, you could tell what kind of a psychiatrist he was. Like I said, the boat's name was the Freudian ship. So named after the Freudian slip. So it was, and I just never changed the name because you're not supposed to change the name on the boat. So I don't know. I don't know. I've been using StreamYard, as you can tell, and I haven't had, knock on wood, I haven't had any issues with it. Do another chat, Ray. Yeah, I think Skype is going away. Everybody kind of slid over the Teams. You have to watch Zoom. Zoom had, although I think Zoom got their security issues taken care of. My church small group was using Zoom for a while, and this laptop really didn't like it. Yes. Actually, StreamYard, I can have up to 10 or 9 people in here right now. They actually upped it. It was originally only 4 or 5. Now it's up to 10. They just announced it this week that they moved it up to 10, and it's a web version, so you don't even have to do anything. Yeah, the StreamYard is a strictly web version, so it's real easy. Just like I said, you just go to StreamYard.com and there it is. And if you want to have people in on a panel type of thing, the only thing you have to do is you have to know you have to have their email or their text or whatever, but you can send them the link to the actual show, and they can pop in. It's like that's I think they call it the green room. You'll actually show up at the bottom, and then the host just clicks on it, and they'll show up on the video. Yeah, we use Microsoft Teams at work, but I think that's really a part of Office 360 or Microsoft 365 now. Um, that's cool, Jason. Yeah, I was really whereby worked real well, John. I like that. And like I said, StreamYard seems to work real well too. I mean, I haven't, knock on wood, I haven't had any issues with it. When I first started doing this or testing this out back in, what was it, mid to late February, early March, I think it was, is when Sparky was telling me, hey, you ought to start thinking about doing live streams. Um, that's when I was playing around with, and I played around with OBS and a couple other ones, and I was having all sorts of issues. So, and then I found somebody had mentioned, and it may have been Wilmer that mentioned StreamYard. Clay Marcel, welcome aboard, sir. Dave BNSFN scale, welcome aboard. Oh man. So yeah, I mean it's like I said, it's kind of, I mean, StreamYard or Whereby, I mean they seem to work fairly well. I've done a couple of things. In fact, Rick Bailey helped me out one Monday night where I was working over on Bowville doing some wiring, and he kind of just hopped in and was reading off questions as they were coming across. So he's kind of moderating for me while I was working, and I couldn't see the screen. So that worked out too. Oh, what else we got going on? Yeah, that was one of the other funny things that came up when I was sitting there messing around with the schedule. And well, I'm not messing with the schedule. I'm actually just running the trains again. But I realized that I'm going to have to work on getting myself some extra rolling stock, believe it or not. I can't believe I said that. But I'm gonna be looking into getting myself some extra. I need to get some extra covered hoppers, some extra gondola cars. I think I'm going to be pretty good on box cars. I've still got a few that I have to put together. Normal hopper cars I'm going to be good with. But with the way I've got the schedule set up, I just realized that, for moving the gondola cars around between the scrap yard and the 2 yards and the classification yard, it's going to be a little bit with only a few of them. It's going to be a little tight. So we'll see. Yeah, you can never have enough rolling stock. That's true. That's true, Jason. Or locomotives, for that matter. I've got quite a few tank cars. I've got quite a few of the bigger hopper cars, and then I've got quite a few small hopper, the 30-ton hopper cars. So hopper cars aren't an issue, especially since I've got six more that I just got finished building. But I've got to get some. I got to get some white decals for those. Those are those. I mentioned that Tuesday, and I mentioned it I think on Vlog 28, the Chesapeake and Allegheny 30-ton hoppers. I'm really jonesing to get those on the railroad. Hey, you know what, Marcel? I ran that the other night. I actually had that. It actually went from the north yard to the south yard. So it cleaned the southbound, or it cleaned the northbound run last night. Or was it last? Yeah, it was last night. Hey, Rodney, trust me. There's no there's no way you have too many. Rick Bailey is in the house. Boy, that was a quick bottle there, Rick. What was it, a fifth or a pint? I'm kidding. Like we never. Absolutely, Rick. We didn't. Yeah, I don't. I don't. I've got Twitter, but I don't use it. Yeah, I am putting that to good use, Marcel. That and uh, I was actually thinking, is it sitting over here? It is. It figures right now there was something else that I came across, but right now it's sitting behind a 50 foot, or it's sitting behind a high cube boxcar, so you can't see it. And just a few shots. Okay. Oh man. Yeah, Dave, I've got a string of Virginian cars. I've got a total of 8 of them. They're the bigger, and I don't, you guys, they're not the modern hoppers. I think they might be 50 ton. But I've got a whole bunch. Like I said, I've got 8 of them painted up for the Virginian, 2 painted up for the Burlington Northern. One of them is painted up for I think it's the CNS. I've got a Lehigh Valley, and I think there might be one more. I think there's a Union Pacific one in that batch too. But yeah, one box, all 5161 Air Mountain hoppers. Wow. Gee. Like I said, I've got. What's up with the? Would you? What was the purpose of going out of focus? Gee. Anyway, hey, Lehigh River Subdivision, my new sub. I'm gonna have to go and watch some stuff before YouTube takes it away. 2 unit grain trains, right there. Yeah, I was doing I was I was doing cement hoppers there for a while, but yeah, because of the fact that I changed the Weichert Industrial Railroad over here from what it was to what it is now. You know, and like I said, the newest. I mean, those really long hopper cars, the grain hopper cars, are probably the newest things that I run on the layout. It's although come to think of it, it's kind of funny. Once we get into the operation here, I've got a car that's actually sitting in the RBC distribution company back here. The hole in the wall. Uh, there's actually a car back there that I happen to think really probably shouldn't be on the railroad because it's too new, but that's okay. And if you're wondering what I'm talking about, when I get the train over here to work that, you'll see what I'm talking about. All right, so we're going to go ahead and I'm going to go ahead and kind of get this rocking and rolling. I just got to remember where the heck I was last night. Besides in the basement playing with trains. That one's going to stay there for the moment. That one had to come up. One, northbound. On the X9 north. So northbound's got to run first. Let's just hope it stays together. idea why that likes to do that, but whatever. I gotta fix that. Actually, I got two of them I gotta fix. Passenger cars. Hey, did Joe Rader show up too? Hey, there's Joe. Welcome aboard. We got the northbound passenger train headed up to Harrisburg. But I just noticed I got two cars in this train that I gotta fix. They're coming apart. That's not good. All right. So the northbound passenger train has entered the yard. That's something I'll have to deal with, of course. Never ending. All right, so now they're put away. And oh, there it is. Okay. Wrong one. Rock Island's gonna come out. Hopefully. This wasn't moving. I think when it gets down to Beauville Yard, it's gonna go back to the bench again. This thing. This thing is starting to really hurt the heck out of me. I've never had an Athearn unit give me so much trouble. More power because this isn't gonna work. Yeah. He doesn't start moving. There we go. Sorry about that. Hey, Steve. What's going on? Okay. Now comes the fun part. All right, look, darn it. This here is exactly what I was talking about the other week, though, how we lose a car in the backdrop. Hey, Chasco, welcome aboard. Yeah, how we lose a train in the backdrop, but no, how with this particular industry, oh, what the heck? I don't want you don't want a diesel engine inside the distribution plant. Oh, I knew that was going to be a problem. That'll be one of the things once I do get a chance to get some folks. All right, come on now. Really? Ugh. Everything works until you've got somebody watching. And it's even compounded even more when it's in a hidden area. Of course, it's got to be. It can't be out where you can get to it. It's got to be behind the backdrop. That would be too easy. Anyway, why am I having so much trouble back here? Ah, I see what. Okay. All right. Anyway, as I was saying before I was rudely interrupted, is you obviously don't want a diesel engine inside of a warehouse. Um, so you kind of have to pick up, and I did this the other night. Now, for some stupid reason, tonight I can't get in there to disconnect these stinking wires. Note to self: convert to KDs. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Well, not only that, but I'm in way too deep anyway. Okay, there we go. That's all right. I was trying to disconnect the wrong set of cars. Anyway, obviously you do not want a uh, a diesel engine inside of a district, inside of a plant. Actually, I think that Western Maryland car, that should have stayed. One, two, three. No, it shouldn't have. No, it shouldn't have. That's right. Okay. And I got the text message. Requesting a panel to help me. Okay. All right. All right. You know what? I'm just going to do it this way. See if somebody wants to jump in there on StreamYard. Hey, Anthony. What's going on? Welcome to the Nut House. There we go. Nope. Didn't catch. Didn't catch. I've got somebody. Hey, John. There we go.
Hey, Ray.
Hey, John. What's happening?
Hey, Ray. How you doing?
There we go.
Hey, Ray. Hey, John.
All right. Why have we got?
Hey, Ray. How you doing?
Why have we got?
Hey, John.
All right. Why have we got? Have you got it up on YouTube, John? Because if you do, you're gonna have to mute it on YouTube or on YouTube. Yeah. It's gonna keep. It'll just keep echoing on us.
Okay, I just muted mine.
There we go. Now we should be good.
Yeah, that's better.
Yeah.
Hey, thanks.
Oh, you want to be a pain in my foot back here, don't you? Dang it. Here we go.
Of course, Ray. You're on live.
Exactly. Like I said, everything works great until you got somebody watching. So anyway, what I was talking about before everything decided to go semi-south here, and we got the rest of the train coming out now. Obviously, you don't want a diesel engine inside of a warehouse. It's not a good idea. So what I did is for this particular train, whoever runs it, when I actually do get operators down here, they're going to have to do exactly what I just did, which was pick up the two cars from the Atlantic Copper and Brass, and then go in or come back and pick up the rest of the train, because there's actually two tracks on that warehouse back here. I'm not sure if it's going to. I should have just done this earlier. That would have made sense. That's the problem. It would have made sense.
Heath wants to know if you ever have issues with the S-turn.
If I ever have issues with the S-curves?
Yeah.
For the most part, everything that comes across the S-curve is not a problem. The only locomotive that I do have an issue with right now going across there is the E33, the electric locomotive that's sitting up here. This guy. It's a Bachmann Spectrum. I picked this up quite a few years ago, but this is the only locomotive that actually has a problem, and it's only on it when it's going north. Coming south, not a problem. Going north, it has an issue, and I have not been able to figure out why. It's one of those goofy things. Everything else runs across those curves. no issue. This thing, in one direction it's fine, the other direction it doesn't want to go, and it's all 22-inch radius through here. This whole layout, with the exception of the classification yard at Boville and the industrial area here at Weichert, at the Weichert Industrial, that's the only two places where there's 18-inch radius.
Okay.
Everything else is 22-inch radius. But
He says it's going south because it likes better weather.
well, yeah, that's probably true. That's probably true. So anyway, now that I've gotten this thing,
And Rick wants you to present yourself so we can see you.
what's that?
Rick wants you to present yourself so we can see you.
Present myself.
Ah, there he is.
Yeah, doesn't want to go back to New Haven. Right, exactly. Okay. Yeah, but Joe's got an SD9 that he can only run in one direction. All right, so I'm not alone.
Oh, you're definitely not alone there, right?
So anyway, now what I was talking about is, and like I said, you can't really see. I can probably take the backdrop off the front here, but that'll make it a little bit easier. What I did back here is you've got on where the train that was out here that I just dropped off is on one track, and what I just picked up was on another. And, one of the things that I was talking to some folks about is, yeah, it's probably not a good idea to actually have a diesel engine pull into the warehouse. So anybody that would be working in this particular area, they have to pick up the two cars at the Atlantic Copper and Brass first, take those, come out, pick up the rest of the train, back it in, and then once it's in, the guy that works Harrisburg would actually disconnect, or if I actually ever get over to Katie's, it would uncouple itself, and then you can pull back in, pick up the train that's sitting, that's ready to go out, and then bring it out onto the layout, and which is what we've already done. I've got the train that was loaded or unloaded. I've now got it on the layout, so I'm going to go back up to where the caboose is, because everybody knows I'm between 1950 and 1970. Yeah, I'm still using cabooses. So there's no Freds on this layout.
And what Rick was talking about is to make your camera big, make your screen big so we can see more of your layout.
Oh, let me.
Yeah, apparently they don't want to see me.
Apparently they don't want to see you. Okay. Is that better?
It didn't change for me. Oh, it's a little better, I guess. Yeah.
Let me try it out. There we go.
That's
Okay. There we go. Thanks, Rick. I forgot about that feature. So now what I've got to do is hopefully everything stays on the track, which it's not, of course, again, because we've got people watching.
right.
So now what I've got to do is, and of course this is quite the train to be doing a backing move with, but anyway, so now I've already got the two cars that were at Atlantic Copper and Brass. So now I'm going to drop off the front two cars, which would be going to Atlantic Copper and Brass.
What railroad is that loco, Ray?
That's Rock Island.
Rock Island. Okay.
Yeah, that's a GP30. I'm sorry, it's a U30, not a GP30. It's a U30. It's one of, I think, four U30s that I actually have, and I think right now that's the only one. I think that's the only one that I've actually got that's running. The rest of my U-boats right now are in repair. I'm just double checking that because I take that back. I've got a Burlington U30 sitting over here too. So I got two of the four on the layout. The other two are in repair. So we're going to go ahead and back this guy onto the Atlantic Copper and Brass spur.
He says he thought you only ran chassis.
I do run, well, it's my railroad. No, I do, the layout itself is pretty much, for the most part, is Western Maryland, Chesapeake and Ohio, Baltimore and Ohio chassis system. However, there were certain paint schemes that I was a fan of, and some fallen flags that I'm a fan of. The Rock Island being one of them. I've got a couple of Southern units. I've got a Delaware and Hudson unit. I've got a Richmond, Fredericksburg, and Potomac, which is now part of the CSX. So that one there is not too far fetched. The Nickel Plate Road, the Pennsylvania, obviously. I'm a big fan of the Pennsylvania. Not so much the Penn Central, but the Pennsylvania itself. I do have one fictional railroad locomotive on here, and that one came from the Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute up in where the heck are they? I think they're up in Vermont or New Hampshire, and this actually was painted up for their railroad. I got this off of eBay probably about 10 years ago. I've actually got the B unit as well. They use their F units to pull passenger trains. Here, I'm using that F unit to pull freight trains because my New Haven can actually pull my New Haven passenger cars. So yeah, I mean, for the most part, this thing's that middle Atlantic area. Like I said, the Pennsylvania, the Chesapeake and Ohio, the Baltimore and Ohio, the Western Maryland. And then there are some things that are from the outside. Along with that one, I've got the Wabash sitting down there. A buddy of mine years ago gave me a set of, or a Rio Grande passenger set, which I'm sure that Brian from the Iron Horse route would like to see. That's a neat little train. Unfortunately, I think its engine's going. That engine's going up. That's an old Tyco system. Really old Tyco locomotive. But again, it was just one of those things. I've got it. I've run it. I probably shouldn't be, but right now I need another passenger train, so that's the reason why it's going. What else we got?
Savensky said, did you say hopper of brass? Excuse me, hopper of brass? He used to work for copper and brass sales.
Oh, the Atlantic Copper and Brass. There's a funny story behind that. This house, when I moved in last April, I decided, I don't know, I guess it was June or July-ish last year, before I actually started working on the railroad. I've got a little over an acre of land between where the house sits and a lot behind me. And I didn't have a cart for my lawn tractor, so I built one. And I went into the rafters in the garage and started pulling wood down and was going to start cutting it, or actually did cut it up. But the wood that was up in the rafters came from a place called the Atlantic Copper and Brass Company. So, and it was originally, Atlantic Copper and Brass was, I guess, located in downtown Baltimore, and actually still is. They weren't a rail serve industry, but on my layout they are. So, like I said, I kind of use a lot of stuff that came from my family history is tied up in this. But then with that, it was like, well, now I've got some place to run some cars to. I've got another industry that I can mess with, and that's why I put this. I mean, I had this on my old layout. It was kind of hidden, but now it'll be sitting here. So that'll be my Atlantic Copper and Brass.
Oh, are you going to detail the interior?
No, actually, this is going to be a fascia flat, so you won't see the backside of the building. It'll just be a piece of masonite or something of that nature to go across the front here to help keep it from getting knocked over, which I've already knocked it on the floor once. That was an interesting repair job, trying to repair a building that's already put together. And it's a little tough to do.
Sure.
especially one like this, because the roof came loose, the water tank shattered on me. I actually had to put it back together. It's like 4 pieces, and 2 of those pieces came off. There's a piece of pipe that sits up underneath it here, but the biggest issue I had was getting the roof line back up, because the stuff that's on the front, or the stuff that's on top here, wasn't there when you put you had the roof put on and then you put those on. Well, when you go to repair it, no, those are already there, so you can't just slide it in and be done. So, anywho, now comes some really fun stuff. Let's see, we can drop that. That's the caboose, and that's the one that's at the. This is going to be the only problem. We'll have to find some way of working on that. All right, so that one is there, and then the deep rock. All right, so that's those 2. And if you're wondering what I'm playing with, most folks probably already know this, but I do have a car card system, and I've started to tinker with JMRI specifically for just doing tracking, but I haven't really gotten there yet. So I haven't really gotten too deep into messing with that. And that'll be in the future. So the Ralston, the Williston, New Haven, Indian National, Western Pacific, and the Reading. All right. So those got dropped. And we picked up the Carnation, the Hormel, the Bar, the BPX, the Western Fun, and the Dairy Mix. All right. And no, I don't have the way bills done yet either. I'm still kind of doing this by the seat of my pants. Let's see. I've got to take him off of A. All right. Because the southbound, southbound's going to pass. All right, so block 2 now. Wrong power pack, right? It should be off. All right, cool. There we go. There we go. All right. What happens is while that freight train once that freight train gets done, or while that freight train is actually doing its movements, the southbound passenger train actually leaves Harrisburg and has to pass the passenger train, or pass the freight train. So that's what we're simulating now. I've got a Chessie System locomotive pulling a couple of passenger cars here, so he'll, if I got everything set right.
Oh, there it comes. You must have it set right.
Well, that he's on block 3 now. He's going to hit block 2. This is where it'll get a little bit. Well, now he's actually on block 3. He just left block 1. I'm sorry. When he gets down here towards the caboose, he's actually going to be on. He'll be on block 2 and hit it. There we go. Hey, I actually did it right. What do you know? Even a blind squirrel finds a nut every once in a while. So what's going to happen now is I'm going to go ahead and swing this around. This is unfortunately one of those locomotives that I haven't modified yet. So he's having a little bit of issue with the switches, but he made it across them, so that's a start. Now what's happening is I'm hoping it shows up on camera. He's actually on the passenger side of Beauville. He'll stop. And then what happens is we actually have another passenger train that comes out of Beauville while that one's making its station stop. Now the Southern will take over and he'll head down to Richmond on the hidden trackage. I can leave that behind, I don't need that. All right, now comes the next fun part of this. Pick up my car cards, turn that back off.
Well, Sparky and Grandpa Rails just stopped in, right?
Hey, guys. Thank you, John. I appreciate that.
No problem.
So now, what I just got finished doing is I just got finished manually setting the switches for the inbound to Beauville Yard. So this freight train is now going to, provided of course the locomotive decides it wants to run. Oh, there it goes. There we go. Yeah, I saw that coming. I've got a refrigerator car that's not happy. Well, that was interesting. What the heck happened there? Oh, I know what the heck's happening. Dummy. I was wondering what the heck was happening there. Helps to have the block set up right. Now, why are you all being a pain in my butt tonight? I don't need that. I can go back over here.
Steve 87th wants to know if you have a Fitbit on and how many steps you get.
The other day when I was doing this and I was carrying the phones, I ended up with a little over 11,000 steps on the 6 hour. Or I'm sorry, I was 11,000 steps on the on just doing the thing. It was like a 3 hour session. So yeah,
Wow.
I definitely get my steps in. You know, John, it was kind of funny too. I did get a chance to finally put together the diagram of the railroad, and all this time I was telling everybody that it was 36 feet down the backside. It's not. It's only 34 feet. I'm not sure how I added the extra 2 feet to that, but I somehow did. So it's actually 34 feet down the backside. It's 8 feet down the side over here for Beauville. Bowville itself is 5.5 feet deep. It's 10 feet across the front side here, and then it's another 14 feet on the Wykert Hill or the Wykert Industrial, and then Newtown side of the layout. So I definitely get my steps in.
Yeah, it might be 2 feet shorter, but it's still a big layout, right?
It's yes. But it's funny because even like we said on the community roundhouse, I've been in and out of the hobby for almost 40 years.
Right.
And everything that I had up to this point was, for lack of a better term, was a play toy.
Okay.
I had circles. I had loops. The last one, the 13-foot by 11-foot layout that I had, that one there I could do some operation with. It was very limited, but I could do some with that. The only problem with that one is once you got to the north side of the layout, all of a sudden you were back on the south side of the layout. So trains kind of time warp from, the north side back to the south side, or the south side to the north side. So it wasn't very realistic. Unlike this one, where, and as we talked about too, this layout is fairly unique. There's not many that I know of that can. I mean, I think they're starting to become a little bit more common. But for years, you either had a loop layout or you had a point-to-point layout. There were very few that could do both.
Right.
And this one, I can do both. I can come down here, once I actually get the electric run to the layout. Right now, I'm still got temporary electric for this thing. But eventually, I can come down here, flip a switch, and just watch the trains run. I can sit here and watch 2 trains take the minute and 45 second trip over the whole layout. And they're going to disappear for a long time, and then they're going to show back up again. It's not like my old layout where every 15 to 20 seconds it's like, oh, there's a train. Oh, there's a train. Oh, wait, there's a they actually go someplace.
Right.
And one of the things too is this thing, and I mentioned it in the roundhouse too. This is a dream realized, and that's the fact that I'm finally getting to the point. I'm finally starting to see that of having a full switching layout, having the car or having the trains actually go someplace, or at least be simulating going someplace.
Right.
Like I said, here it is. I just had a locomotive or a train come out of the North Yard, Harrisburg, transverse the layout on the visible portion, go down to Bowville, stop, and another train picks up and finishes the route down to Richmond. And eventually that same train on the schedule will be headed in the opposite direction and do the same thing. It'll come out of Richmond, it'll go to Bowville, and another train will leave Bowville and continue to trip north. So, that's the way that this thing's set up. All the passenger trains that will make, it's 24 runs. Each one of them makes a north run and a south run, or vice versa, depending on which way they started. So if they started from the south and they went north, eventually on the return, obviously they're going to go from the north back to the south. At some point, they'll end up back where they started from. So that's one of the neat things. And of course, what I was simulating with this was one of the local trains, which there's 3. There's the southbound run, which this one is. Then there's a northbound run that actually leaves Bowville and actually goes up to Wykert Industrial and then goes up to Harrisburg. And then there's another train after that actually leaves Richmond, comes up to Bowville, and then leaves Bowville and actually goes up to Harrisburg. So there's 3 local trains mixed in. Well, not mixed in. The through freights actually go first, and then the 3 locals, and then all of the through freights do the reverse of wherever they started from as well. So, case in point, since I don't have a model of a steel plant, there's a steel plant in Richmond. Well, for folks that are on the East Coast know that Pennsylvania and Western Maryland had a big, and still do, a fairly large vein of coal. Well, one of the trains that starts off in Harrisburg is a coal train. So that coal train starts in Harrisburg and makes its way all the way to Richmond, and then later in the session leaves Richmond empty and goes all the way back up to Harrisburg.
Oh, that's
So
cool.
it's that empties in, loads out, or loads out, empties in type of deal too. So, like I said, the rolling stock is actually having a purpose now instead of just looping in the layout.
Oh yeah, it's a lot of reality in it adds to it.
Right, exactly, exactly. And unfortunately, the camera's now on the other side of the computer, so if there is people asking me stuff, I can't see it. Sorry.
Well, he's having trouble believing you've been in the hobby for 40 years. He says you don't look a day over 41.
Oh, I appreciate that, Heath. Thanks, Heath. I appreciate that. My mind thinks I'm 12. My body wonders why I'm not dead. Actually, back in January, I hit the half century mark. So, yeah, like I said, I've been in and out of the hobby now for 40 years. When I was in the service, I missed a few years, and as we talked about on my live stream Tuesday night, there was a time in the mid '90s where things weren't happening for any of the railroad stuff for the hobby at all. So that's where I lost a few years, but I think I'm making up for it.
I'd say you are.
So anyway, now the point of contention, or what has been the point of contention, is my wonderful roundhouse over here, or turntable, as it were. We're not actually going to pull. We're actually not going to pull this guy in yet, especially since I want to see if I can't pull him off the phone switch. I want to pull him off the layout and take a look at the motor on that one. So I'm going to swing back around here. So anyway, now at this point, the guy that's working the Beauville yard would have to go in and break that train down. And if you notice, the Beauville yard is actually fairly full. And this is another one of those nuances. There's obviously where the yard switcher is sitting, which I'm not sure if that's going to show up on here or not. I'm going to try and swing this a little bit more. The yard switcher is actually over here, so he's going to have to come down, back up, and pull that train in a little bit so he can actually get to the caboose side of it, which is actually over here. And right now he couldn't do that because it's on top of switches. So this was one of those nuances too that I found while I was operating this thing the first time. It's like, oh, how am I going to fix? Oh man, all right, well that's a neat one. I'll have to figure out how to work that in. But I figured that out as to how that gets done now. So it's just one of those things you got to break the train up a little bit, be able to get it broken down, and then actually moved. As I've mentioned, this backtrack, I'm going to stand off to the side here. Eventually, there'll be a warehouse or a warehouse flat that will occupy the backside of this homosoak down here, kind of mimicking Camden Yards in downtown Baltimore, the big warehouse that sits out in the right field, which that used to be the Baltimore and Ohio Yard. So it's not too far-fetched. But that'll be a warehouse where the incoming trains will be staged up against that warehouse to be either loaded or emptied before they make the rest of their trip, either north or south on the railroad. And I'm going to swing myself back around here. It's kind of nice having that sit on top of the TV. You guys get a completely different view of this monster.
Oh, it's a great view from this angle.
Hey, is Sparky still hanging around in here?
I haven't seen him for a while.
Okay.
I didn't see him say goodbye though.
Okay. Well, like I was saying, I've been wanting to get with him on that fascia flight here, but yeah, like I said, I mean, this thing is just, it's been a blast. I mean, I've got a long way to go yet. And I'd say I've taken a little bit of heat. Hey, how come you're operating the railroad? Well, that's why we build them. We build them to operate them.
Sure.
And, to me, I wouldn't be mad if I never get this thing scenic. It would be nice. But, I'm still at that stage too where I want to make sure that the track work, at least on the main lines, is solid. It's going to work. Everything runs across it. And that's kind of what I've been doing is, making sure that I can run everything across this layout, not just one or two. I want to make sure that all the locomotives that I've got and all the rolling stock that I got are going to make it across this railroad. One case in point too is down here at the what will be Newton's Farm. I don't even know if I showed up on camera.
Yeah.
Case in point is this thing. There is, or what will be, a cut where the tracks will go through. One of the big things that you have to watch out for is a dude like this one is making sure that something like this is not going to hit anything as it goes through.
Oh, yeah.
And believe it or not, but right over here, it hits.
Okay.
So I've got a little bit of shaving I've got to do, or a little bit of manipulation. This isn't even tacked down yet either. So that's all still movable. But, this thing's got such a wild overhang. It's one of the things I was telling Jack about Tuesday night is the fact that we ran this thing across 15-inch radius one time. And that is what it looked like when it went. You can't even see. There you go.
Yeah.
The body was straight and the wheels were out from underneath of it. It
Yeah.
was the funniest looking thing. It ran across it, but it was the funniest looking thing.
Oh, they have a huge overhang.
Yeah. And, even with this being 22-inch radius, it still has a bit of an overhang, but it's not too bad. It actually doesn't look bad as it goes across the layout.
Right.
But it's one of those things that I had to be very careful with that and the passenger cars that the one passenger train. It's got the longest passenger cars on the layout. They're the I think the 89 or 87 or 85 foot. They're long suckers.
Sure.
And I have to be real careful with those because they've got a heck of an overhang too, and their overhang is almost as bad as the GG1.
Right.
Mine don't pay a lot, but my dad never retired and changed the old rules 8 years ago. Oh, now they're talking about.
Yeah, they're a little older than you.
Well, yeah, humanity. That was the GG1. I finally got that thing somewhat repaired. That was the one I did the transplant on. You know what? Since we're done with the operations here, John, I'm going to go ahead and put us back to even. There we go.
All right.
Now, since we're at this view too, and this was one of the things I did on one of the sidetrack Sundays, you can see the Harrisburg yard back here.
Right.
And there's nothing here right now. That's because all the rolling stock is either under the layout or it's sitting, the passenger trains are actually sitting out right behind the backdrop here. So that's where they sit. The cabooses, they're there. The passenger cars are here, and the rest of the rolling stock is in box or in a drawer underneath the layout on the backside.
Okay.
So when the trains come in, when you're running one of these 2 yards, or like I've been doing, running both. Of course, last night I forgot to take one of the trains off and actually had one of them get rear-ended. I was like, "What the heck was that noise?" I looked around the corner. I'm like, "Oh crap!" It's a good thing it wasn't running at full speed like it usually, or not full speed, but wasn't running as fast as it usually does. Because if it would have, the cars probably would have came out. They would have been out this side and on the floor. But yeah. So that train right now, the southern unit, that will come off. The passenger cars will go up top. The engine will go up on the shelving over top of the thing. And that's the other thing here too. Can we? Yeah, I can do this. I can do anything. Given enough time and money, I can do anything. Anyway, the way that this works too is I've got a shelf up here for the locomotives. These are the locomotives for the north end. Those are the locomotives for the south end, and they're actually broken into two groups as well. One group, that was good. Oh, knocking my car card. One group is your freight locomotives, and the other group is the passenger locomotives. So they're separated up here. And of course, my RDC is sitting up there as well. I originally had that sitting down with the rest of the passenger trains, but realized that I didn't have enough room for it. So I put it up with the rest of the locomotives. So it's a hybrid. It's the RDC. So it could be either or.
Right.
Yeah, John, I agree. I refuse to grow up. I may grow old, and I'm not going to grow up. What was that other saying? He who dies with the most toys wins.
That's it. Yep.
Yeah.
That's always been my goal.
Yeah. Yeah. My body aged, but not my spirit. Absolutely, Grandpa. Absolutely. Yeah, that's the other thing, Rodney. True. If you grow up, you're missing out.
Sure.
I think it was who the heck had the Canandaigua with Southern? That was John Armstrong, the old track planner.
Sure. Yeah, that was John.
Yeah, he mentioned that too. He's like, it's I've got a bunch of trains I can play with. Absolutely.
Right, who wants to grow old now?
Exactly. Heck, I've got all these trains I can play with. And of course, I'll never forget that interview with Alan Keller and him saying at the end of it, he's like, he said, boy, the O scale steam engines are really impressive. And then John turns and looks at him and goes, yeah, there's nothing like 25 pounds to get you motivated. Oh, wow. I'm sitting there going, 25-pound locomotive. Good night. Wow. Yeah, there you go, Rick. Growing old is mandatory. Growing up is optional. Absolutely. Here you go. I'll grow old. I'll refuse to grow up. I turned 13 once and I stayed there for 43 years. Oh, man. This group. Oh, man. Yeah, I mean, it's, I was really hoping that my brother and his family were going to come down this weekend, but they ended up with a conflict. So, and of course, then I ended up finding out that I'm on call. I started on call at 8 o'clock this morning, so I'm not going to get much done over the next week. So I might as well just come down here and have fun with it.
Sure. Is your brother a model railroader?
He's not. He's in the RC cars.
Okay.
Him and his son just started with this whole RC car thing, and it's funny. He used to do some board level repair work for a company that my dad used to work for years ago. But he calls me up one day. He's like, Ray, I've got a problem. I'm like, what's wrong? He says, my RC truck. He says, I burnt up the battery, or he said, I burnt up the motor. I've got a replacement. He says, but it's been so daggone long since I've soldered anything. He says, I don't trust myself. He said, would you want to take a look at it? I'm like, okay, fine. He brings this thing down, and it's one of these, it's a monster truck. And I'm like, what the heck? I mean, here at the time, I didn't even really have a workbench to work on this. We're sitting there. He's holding on to it while I'm trying to solder wires. I'm like, okay, this is ridiculous. So, now I've actually got a workbench, but him and I, we were supposed to go in halves on a soldering unit. But since his birthday was the end of last month, I surprised him and told him he doesn't owe me a thing. So He was supposed to come down because he's got some other things that he needs repaired. And he just said, no, I can't do it this weekend. I got a conflict. I'm like, all right, that's fine. I said, hey, you're the one that was asking me when I was free. You know, but his son loves trains. And the thing is I've got my brother Chris, his son CJ, like I said, is in the trains, and my brother told me, he said, look, he said, don't get rid of the N gauge, because I've still got the N gauge stuff that came from my great grandparents. He's like, don't get rid of it. He said, if I ever get a house, he says, I want the N gauge. He said, so that CJ and I can mess with it. I'm like, that's fine. I said, that's great. I said, I'm not going to get rid of it. I said, if you want it, it's yours. So, but yeah, I refuse to get haircuts, keeping what I got. Well, yeah, my wife has cut mine twice, and my daughter's cut mine once, because I haven't obviously been to a normal barber. My hair gets way too daggone thick. I gotta keep it short.
Mine used to get real thick.
I've got this stinking cowlick up here too, so it looks like sometimes when it gets real long, it looks like I'm a rooster. I've got this, partial mohawk sticking up. Oh man, what else have we got going on here in the chat? Well, they're messing with your hair there, John.
Oh, it's my fault. I should have kept my mouth shut.
Oh, but anybody got anything else for me here? I mean, since I decided to just, like I said, somebody else had asked me if I was going to start doing more impromptu shows again, and well, this is the second time this week I've been up. I've been in. I'm starting to feel a little bit like Rodney. Of course, he did his back to back.
And was prepared to do it again tonight.
Yeah, I know. Talk about marathons, and that was hilarious what Eminem Rails did at the beginning of the community rail house. I had a chance to go back, and that was funny. And it starts at 9 o'clock and then finishes at 11.
Mark's hilarious. He best intros.
Finish sleeping on the railroad. I wouldn't go 3 hours, but we know somebody that went 6. Yeah. What's this hair that you speak of? I vaguely remember. Oh, brother. Oh. Bunch of nuts. I tell you what, I love it. I love it. Oh. I can actually see this better with my glasses off than when I can with them on. They're only cheaters, at least for the moment.
Well, that's what I'm using, and I've been using them for about 15 years.
I'm only 3 or 4 years, I think, on these. They're 1.25s, I think.
Okay. Well, I'm up to 2.5, but still only cheaters.
I keep asking Ray to see the GG1 at Train World, but it gets deleted. I'm not sure what's going on with that, humanity. I can see you, Heath. I have not checked out the GG1 at Train World. You and Sparky both have mentioned it. I have not taken a look at that yet. I have not taken a look at that yet.
Is it blackjack by any chance, Heath? Oh, yeah, they have a blackjack there.
Oh, nice. I was going to say, I've seen the real one. His wife must be watching. No, she's probably in bed. Or she's watching one of her, she's watching one of her shows. Um, yeah, I know, Grandpa. Absolutely. It was on sale for 90. Oh,
Whoa, that's pretty cheap.
oh, yeah. Because that one that I've got is that was done by. It was actually they say it's 4M. That's Mahino Model Masters. I guess it was a step up from the old AHM.
Okay,
I guess it was their next level, kind of like what Mantua was the Tyco.
right.
Um, but it was just really funny. Like I said the other week when I had that AHMF unit go up on me where the gears went bad, and I opened the thing up and I'm like, hey, wait a minute. That motor looks awfully familiar, and then I pull it out, and darn sure enough, it's the same. I'm like, oh, I don't need another F unit. Back in the GG1. Here we go.
Perfect. Good
Take
night, Joe. Have a good one.
it easy, Joe.
Well, when you were on Community Roundhouse, Ray, I mentioned the GG1 I have from the early '50s, the Penn line.
Yep.
This is it.
Oh, there you go. And that one actually is black.
No, it's very, very dark green.
Okay, that's the Brunswick.
Yeah, well, it's actually a little darker than Brunswick.
Right.
But
That's nice.
oh, it's great. But like you were saying with the
The open gears.
yep,
Now, see, the thing is, it is though, John, with those being like that, where they're in the middle of the
Right.
rail, they're not. There was the issue that I had with. I'm sorry, I walked off camera, but I know I've got one sitting over here. Yeah, and you can't. This one here, you really can't see it. But this one here has got one of those. Got one of those gears that goes side to side. So what's happening is this here, instead of it where it would just drop it down the middle of the track, this is just going to spray it on top of the rails,
sure.
and that's not going to work.
No,
So
no.
I think I don't think this is Penline. I think this one here was somebody else. No, this one's a Penline. Yeah, this one's a Penline, and these were neat because I think what happened was Lifelike actually ended up picking up the dies for these. The first batch of Lifelikes were the same way, that where this gear, this is the drive wheels, but there's a jack shaft that actually goes up to the front wheel. So this thing is 8-wheel drive.
Okay.
It's just that and of course they did it right too. The pickups are on the back and on the front on either side, and then they've got what would be the traction tires on the opposite side. Oh,
Right.
no, I got the same problem you had.
Yeah, it's all backwards and upside down.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, if it weren't for the fact that the way that gear sits, I think I would probably run it.
Right.
But I'm not going to do it if it's going to sit there and throw lubricant all over the rails. That's just not
you'd
easy to go.
be cleaning your track all the time.
Yeah, exactly. It's just going to make one mellow the hess.
Well, is your Penn line cast lead?
It feels like it.
Yeah, this is.
I mean, the shell's plastic, but the underside, the frame and all it's really heavy.
Oh well, my body is cast lead also.
Oh, really?
The detail in it is pretty incredible for the time period.
Right. Yeah, I'm trying to. The only locomotives that I have that are like that. I've got a couple of them sitting over here. But these were somewhat unique to me. This one here is back from the 50s.
Okay.
This here is a complete die-cast Tyco 040.
Okay.
This thing will pull forever and a day. It doesn't pull fast, but it'll pull forever and a day.
Oh, sure.
And again, it does have that exposed gear, but again, it's in the middle of the rail, so it's not going to be a problem.
Right.
Now, go forward a little bit, Mantua turned around, and this one here happens to be a Mantua. I think this is probably from the mid to late 80s, early 90s, before they went out of business. This is the locomotive itself is die cast. The tender is plastic.
Right.
But this thing, again, it's heavier than heck.
Sure.
And it's got great running properties. That was one of the things that I know that Anthony from the Georgia Sun Belt was asking about a while back. Let me see. I know I've got a couple of them up here, and I just ran one of them last night. Here it is. I really, really do wish that Mantua could have stuck it out a little longer, because I think they were at the point they were starting to get Athearn and run for the money. This is a Mantua GP20.
Okay.
This came from about the same time period as the newer steam locomotive, somewhere in the late 80s, early 90s. This thing is heavier than heck, and the detail on it is it rivals the Athearns, believe it or not, with the GP38s and the GP40s.
Wow.
I mean, this thing, and it's heavy. It's actually heavier than the Athearn locomotives. Even with the superpower weights in them, this thing still outweighs it.
Right. Well, this GG1 is almost as heavy as an O scale GG1.
Wow.
Yeah. This thing weighs a ton.
Whoa. All right, take it easy, John. Yeah, this is the camera that I'm using is a C920. It's a Logitech.
Yeah, that's what I'm using.
Yeah, they are great. But like I said, I actually do like the Mantuas. I've picked up some other things. Like I said, I've got the Bachmann Spectrum. I've got a bunch of I've got a couple of Lifelike Proto 2000s. I've got a Proto 1000. The E7, the Wabash E7. We were talking about unique, off the wall kind of. This thing is heavier than heck too. This is an E7 that was done by Lifelike before they got bought out by Walthers.
Okay.
And again, the detail even on this thing, I mean, it's the doors on the sides actually open.
Oh wow.
It was like, when I first got it, I was like, wow. I mean, this thing, and you talk about another very heavy locomotive. It's that thing. I love that thing. I mean, it's another great piece. I mean, I'm trying to remember. I think I picked that up off of eBay, and that was 4 or 5 years ago. That's while we were up in. It was funny. Here it is. I had gotten a set of Rossi passenger cars with Wabash on the side of them, because in my N-Gauge days, one of the trains that my grandparents had was a Wabash, and it was the locomotive with a couple of cars. And I always wanted that locomotive, in HO. I think that was an FA or a PA.
Okay.
And I just couldn't find a PA, and I already had the one PA, the one PA1, which is done for the home road. And then a couple of years ago, I picked up one from Mr. Robert Sacco from the Nickel Plate. That's an Athearn unit. But I found the passenger cars, and then while I was up at Cooperstown for my nephew's baseball tournament, I actually got a hold of the locomotive. And it's like, I told the guy, I said, look, I want the locomotive. Or no, I think, was it across that, or was it across Facebook Marketplace? One of the two. But I had to sit there, and I'm emailing him back and forth with him, because I'm like, I'd like to have the locomotive, but my Wi-Fi is so spotty up here, I don't know when I'm going to be able to get online to pay. And he emailed me back and said, not a problem. He said, it's yours. He said, just when you get a chance. I'm like, fine. Well, I finally got to the point where I had some halfway decent Wi-Fi up there, and I went ahead and I sent him the payment. And when I got home, I had a locomotive.
Awesome.
Like, that's nice. That was a nice surprise, but it actually beat me to the house.
Rick Bailey wants to know if you'd be interested in a full set of PRR passenger cars.
It's funny, Rick. My GG1 right now, and I was actually looking at this the other night. I was trying to figure out if these old Seamaster brown passenger cars were the right cars to be behind that GG1.
Okay.
Because to be honest, I've got a set of silver passenger cars that my F unit pulls.
Okay.
And so I went online and I started looking at pictures, and come to find out, believe it or not, this is the cars at one point in time that GG1 pulled. And I'm like, well, I'll be darned.
Oh, wow.
The only thing of it is it was pulling somewhere between a 5 and a 10 car train. I've only got 3.
Okay. Well, my dad had an O-scale GG1 with a full rake of the silver passenger cars. I don't know if it was prototypical or not, but it was beautiful.
Yeah. I mean, I don't mind it. I wouldn't mind seeing it pull the silver cars, but I was like, I like the brown cars behind it better.
Yeah.
But I was thinking about picking up picking up 1 or 2 more cars for it. One of the issues that you guys don't see or didn't see tonight, and I'm not sure you can really see it from where you're at. So you know what? I'm gonna pardon the movement here, folks, but I'm gonna do a little something here, and hope that there it is. Let me see if I can. Let me see if I can actually get this to where it zooms in a little bit.
Good night, Dave. Dave BNSF N-Scale is leaving.
Take it easy, Dave. Thanks for stopping in, my friend. This thing is lagging something fierce. And of course, the darn webcam control showed up in front of the darn picture. That's not good. And there it is. Okay. There we are. Okay, in the back there, you can see the southern unit that came into the Richmond yard.
Right.
That train is only 4 cars when it's being pulled by an F unit. Believe it or not, it's too long. The train is actually longer than the inbound track.
Okay.
So when I set some of these passenger trains up, and I'm gonna, instead of putting this up top, I'm just gonna put it on the laptop here, and hope it goes back and forth. Hey, there we go. And we'll just drop it down a little bit.
Hi, James. James Galton just stopped in.
Hey, James. But one of the things that I have, especially when I go to build the Wabash or any of the other ones that have the really long passenger cars, and what I mean by that is there's I'm going back over there to the TV. It's not over there anymore.
Right.
So there you go. There, the Wabash car is on top, and that Baltimore and Ohio car is another passenger car. As you can tell, the passenger cars for the Wabash are longer.
They are real long.
Yeah, and I've got ones that are even longer still. That are behind the home roads locomotive. If I go to build up the Wabash, the one that's actually down at the Beauville passenger station, or the Southern, I have to make sure that I build them on track 1. In other words, if you're looking at Harrisburg here, for instance, this is track 1, outbound track 1, 2, 3, and 4. This is inbound track 1. There's only 1 inbound, and that was done on purpose because there's really only going to be one inbound train coming in at a time.
Okay.
You want to be able to stage up multiple trains for the outbound so that you're not sitting there at the last minute having to build a train.
Sure.
When I build, like I said, when I build those passenger trains, those couple of passenger trains, or when I build the tank train or the coal train, they take up a lot of space because the tank train is 12 cars and the hopper train is 13 or 14 cars now. So they actually take up two tracks. You can't build them on one track.
Okay.
There's not enough room.
Right.
So, like I said, unfortunately, that's one of the nuances of this thing. So you have to be thinking ahead. You have to be looking at the schedule going, okay, normally the way that I've been doing this is I build two passenger trains and one freight train. I do them at a time. So in other words, when I go ahead and I'm now to the point where I'm getting ready to start running the second half of the schedule, I'll actually have two passenger trains and a freight train either on the southbound side or the northbound side to be able to make their runs. And I'll just push them out of the yard and let them take off and go wherever they've got to go. But you have to be thinking ahead because you can't store everything up here. It was one of the things that I had, one of the ideas that I had years ago on my old layout. I was actually going to build an elevator.
Okay.
And one of the guys that I worked with was the one that came up with the idea of actually having it to where the layout would be three-tiered, sort of a la Sparky. The only difference is there was no helix. There was actually an elevator that went from a storage platform on the bottom to the one end, or the south end of the railroad, and then the next tier up was the north end. So what you did is if you had a train that came out of the north end, it would actually loop around to the back side. It would hit that elevator. The elevator would go up and spin so that the train was actually headed in the opposite direction in which it hit the elevator on, would go ahead and come back around and get back on the elevator. When it would go down, it would actually get spun again, and then we headed back, and then we'd hit the elevator, and we'd take it down to the storage tracks at the bottom. And the storage tracks would actually store a full train. So you didn't have to worry about taking stuff on and off the layout constantly.
Sure.
But the problem with that is again, with limited space, that bridge or that elevator, I think, was only like 5.5 or 6 foot long, which meant that some of the passenger trains that I had wouldn't fit on it.
Right.
So it's like, well, that defeated that purpose. That was a great idea, but no, it's not going to work.
Oh yeah, it is a great idea, but it would take up a lot of space to do it right.
Exactly. It still would have taken up less space to a point than what it would have to go ahead and build a 36 or 40-inch two-track helix.
Right.
But the same problem is I just did not have the real estate. And then when the more I thought about this whole elevator thing, I'm like, man, that's going to be a pain in the butt when you're doing operations. I've got a train that's going to get on. I've got a train. And you got competing guys trying to get onto this elevator.
Right.
And it's like, this just not going to, this isn't going to work.
Yeah.
This just isn't going to fly. So, like we were talking about the other night, though, is there a possibility for expansion? Yeah, maybe down the road. If I do, I know I can go farther on the north side. And if I did, then I would probably take the 2 yards and they would end up being out farther, and they would actually be long enough that I could actually store, the passenger trains and actually have them on one track and not have to put them on multiple tracks or what have you. And also have it to where I don't have to constantly shift things on and off the layout.
Right.
They might be where they come in facing in one direction, but you just pick them up, turn them around, and stick them on a track for the outbound. You don't have to pick them up, put them underneath, or pick them up and move them off to the side and put the locomotives up here, all that stuff. It would just be turn it around and be ready to go again.
Sure.
But that's not going to happen tomorrow. And in fact, if the wife has anything to say about it, it may not happen at all.
Right.
Gotta work with the property manager. It's
absolutely.
Yeah, James, that's just give away your extra. Then I'd be running the same things over and over again, and that defeats the purpose. Now this is. I mean, I've been collecting this stuff for years, and like I said earlier, and I think James just popped in, he missed it, but this railroad actually does have a purpose now. It's actually unique to come down here and be able to see a piece of rolling stock, or be it a box car, a gondola car, a hopper car, a passenger car, a passenger train, actually serve a purpose. Go from one yard, hit the other end, hit one end of the layout, and then end up at the other end of the layout and be waiting to make the trip in the opposite direction later on. That's what we strive for, creating a miniature transportation system.
Sure.
And once this thing gets scenic and I get some of the bugs worked out, that's exactly what I've got. And it's been a long time coming. You know,
I
I,
understand that. Good night, Anthony.
huh?
Anthony Dodge is leaving.
Oh, Anthony's leaving. Ah, there he is. Okay, take it easy, Anthony. Good to see you, buddy. But John. It's just been just like we were talking about earlier, and just like we talked about in the community roundhouse. This is a dream realized. It's still partially a dream. It's not done,
Well,
but just the operations side of it is the dream that I've been after for a long time. And the only thing that bothers me is the fact that I really wish my dad was here to see this.
oh yeah.
But because this is what him and I when I was when I moved last year, and I actually started digging back through all my railroad stuff as I was bringing it back out. I found the original box of most people would be like, why did you hold on to something like I actually have in this little plastic case the original plans that him and I were working on when my parents moved from Baltimore City out to Baltimore County years ago.
Oh, I
Uh,
think I would hang on to stuff like that.
I've got the original track plan in here. I've got the list of parts that we were going to need, uh,
Wow.
the whole 9 yards. And when I was in the service, I sent this to him in two parts. And I told him when he opened, well, it was actually two envelopes inside of one. I told him open this one first, and I actually had it set up to where I was actually making it look like I was the superintendent of the railroad looking for permission to build this thing.
Okay.
And everybody in the family played a part.
Right.
And as I mentioned Tuesday, the mid '90s were not kind to my family. I lost three grandparents and my father over the span of 5 years.
Oh wow.
And it was devastating. I mean, it really
Sure.
was. I mean, my dad was. Uh, let's see. My dad would have been. My dad would have been. I'm sorry. This is. My dad would have been 55.
Wow, that's too young.
The year that he passed, he would have been 55.
Wow.
He had what we now would know as in gastral cancer.
Okay.
And at the time, they really didn't know much about it. We're talking the mid '90s, mid to late
Sure.
'90s, and it was something that they had, and they honest to goodness, they tried everything. Unfortunately, it just took over. But I lost my grandmother to cancer, my mom's mom, lost my grandfather to old age. His mind just went. He had other issues, but his mind just really, really went south. And then my grandmother, my dad's mom, she passed when she found out that her only son had cancer. She passed away in November of '96, and my father passed away in January '97.
Oh wow.
So it was rough.
Sure.
But I mean, this was something that him and I had talked about doing. I mean, it was at the time, and it's funny because the other week I think I was telling some folks, I said I've still got, and I'm going to be dating things here a little bit, but I've actually got the old VHS tapes of when Alan Keller first got started with Russ Larson. Video layout tour number 1 and number 4,
Okay.
where they went and saw the Sunset Valley system before it became the Sunset Valley Oregon system with Bruce Chubb. Laurel Joyner's Great Southern, which that is a layout that I really wish I would have gotten a chance to see. That thing just looked awesome.
Oh yeah.
Its own 50 by 60-foot building. It's like, oh, come on, really? Unfortunately, I know we lost Laurel, one or 2 years ago?
Yeah, about that. Yeah.
But I've still got those old VHS tapes, with Wayne Wesolowski and the basic model railroads. And
Sure.
the whole thing got started because, like I said, we had the 4x8s. And my father was talking to a fellow at work. And he's like, yeah, he says, so what are you guys doing this weekend? And this was leading up to Christmas. And my father's like, oh, my son and I, we're going to be up in the attic working on the railroad. He's like, oh, you've got a model railroad? And my father's like, oh, yeah. And this guy's like, I ought to come down and take a look at it. So sure enough, after Christmas, he comes down. And of course, he brings down these wine cases, the old wooden wine cases that he's modified to put rolling stock and locomotives into, thinking that we've got a model railroad. When he comes down and takes a look at the 2 4x8s, he looks at my father and I and goes, you need to come to my house. And so we go ahead and we played around for a little bit. He ran his stuff on our layout or our pipe for a little bit. And then, I don't know, I guess it was a couple weeks later, we go up to his house. And in his 2-car garage, he had taken one car and turned it into the model railroad. He actually had walled up one side of it and made it another room off of the garage.
Right.
And I've got pictures of this. It was in progress. It wasn't finished. And it was based on, because I want to say he was Czechoslovakian by birth. He was building European trains, which to me were just awesome. Sure. I mean, I think he was actually running 00. He wasn't running HO. He was running 00.
Okay.
And the stuff that I was just enthralled by the look of those locomotives, because obviously we've all seen the European steam locomotives just look a lot different than the monsters that we had.
Oh yeah.
They were just a completely different breed. And I mean, I was just awestruck that he had this layout. I mean, and it actually looked like some place that existed. And I'm like, Dad, we've got to do this. And of course, my father's like, yeah, right. On my 3 boys and my son, that ain't gonna happen. So he turned around and he started fueling the fire. Let's say. Right. He was the one that gave us the copies of the VHS tapes, and he was giving my father ideas as to how we could do certain things. And, eventually when I really started getting into it, he came back down and he saw what was happening. He's like, okay, this kid's got the bug now. And, I look at that and I still look back at that these days and say, that between what my grandfather started us with back in the 50s, and then this fellow going ahead and throwing gasoline on the fire, per se, that's what's led to this.
Right.
So take it easy, James. So it's and to be honest too, being on the YouTube community, or being a part of the YouTube community now for almost 6 years, I've learned a lot. I'm still learning. I mean, I still do things my way, which may not be the right way, but
it doesn't matter.
It's one of those things, One of the things that I've always said, and I remember telling Big Bill this, was one of the things that I find fascinating with this group of folks is there's nobody in here that says you're doing it wrong. You need to do it this way.
Right.
Everybody is like, well, that's great, but have you thought about, hey, that's cool, but how about if you did it? You know what? I might try that.
Right.
So it's a nurturing community. There's nobody that's going to sit there and say, what are you thinking? At least I haven't run into anybody like that.
No, neither have I. And we all go about it different ways.
Yeah, exactly. And then, of course, last year when we were all up at Steamtown, that was just that was hilarious. I mean, those meeting up with everybody at Steam, or actually Friday night meeting up with the folks at the hotel, and then the next morning meeting everybody up at Steamtown, and then that night going back to the hotels and sitting there chatting until 2 o'clock in the morning, knowing that we had a 3-hour drive from Steamtown down the Horseshoe Curve. And of course, for me, I had another 3-hour drive from Horseshoe Curve home. So it was like, man, by the time I got done, I'm like, I'm done.
but it was a fun time.
It was. I think when I got home on Sunday night, I'd already taken off Monday because I didn't know when I was going to get back. Right. And I was like, I looked at the wife when I got home, I'm like, man, I might go ahead and take tomorrow off. This just ain't happening. But I was really looking forward to catching up with everybody again this year up at Strasburg, and of course the showstopper killed that idea. But
yeah.
It sounds like Sparky's pushing for it to go next year now, so we'll see what happens. And hopefully in the meantime, maybe if things settle down enough, maybe some of us that are somewhat local can start catching up with one another and going from there. Because like I said, I know Jerry. Him and Rick are both up outside of Philadelphia. I think there's 1 or 2 other people that are just outside of Philly. Myself, Joe Rader, Anthony from the Georgia Sun Belt, and Hot Rod are all down here in Maryland. We're all about, at worst, maybe 2.5 hours from each other.
Right.
And I tell you, it's just, you don't realize how many people are actually. I was telling my wife the other night. I said, here it is. You go to these train shows and you see all these people at the train shows, and you sit there and you think, I didn't think there was that many people in the hobby. Well, some of them probably aren't. Some of them are probably just there to see what they can pick up and resell. But there are other people that are actually in the hobby, and it's just, but you don't see them. It's right. Like you just don't. Here it is, Joe Rader. I think he's like maybe 10 minutes down the road from me.
Wow.
That's like, shit, dude.
Well, I'm about a half an hour north of Jerry.
You're about a half hour? Okay, well, there you go. So, right. And I'm trying to think, the last time I was in Philly, I'm trying to think, I think for me, I think that's like an hour, maybe hour and a half.
Okay.
I think, I mean, it's, I know Lancaster's an hour and a half, depending on traffic.
Sure.
Depending on how many Amish you get stuck behind, Sorry. How many horse and buggies we can get stuck behind, but it's. But I mean, I've been over into Philly once. I've been over to Downingtown, Pennsylvania 4 times. The company that I work for, we've got a lab that's actually in Downingtown, so we've been there a couple times for meetings. So it's like I know where some of that stuff is, but and it's funny because I was telling Rick Bailey, I think it was a couple months ago. I said, you guys are right outside Philly. I said, well, since you're right outside Philly, go take a trip down I-95 and look over at the Philadelphia Naval Yard. My old ship is sitting over there.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah, FFG 42. It's an old Oliver Hazard Perry class fast frigate. They decommed it in 2013, and it's been sitting in the Philadelphia Naval Yard ever since.
Oh, wow.
Waiting for its next assignment. More than likely, probably going to become. Oh, in the green room, Mr. Bailey. Oh boy!
Oh,
here comes trouble.
Time. Jeez.
I'm sorry. You know I'm not looking at the camera.
The funny thing is, I texted you too.
You haven't texted me. How come my phone is going off?
No worries. It's only been 3 minutes. All right. So, not to break up your conversation, but I know you're probably coming to the end here, and I wanted to pop in.
Yep.
So a couple months back, I was talking to a guy buying some of his old stock of stuff, and we had settled on some things, and then he went, "Oh, hey, do you want these too? Because I got no use for them," and he gave me a whole box of these old Athearn passenger cars, and there's a whole set of 7 of them. This one actually says RDC3. I don't know what.
I can tell you what an RDC3 is. This here's a pair that I put together. This is an RDC1, I think.
Okay.
This is the main car. This is an RDC3. This is an old Athearn unit. This is the one that's got the rubber band drive in it.
Oh.
That I took the whole bands out of to have the other locomotive just pull it.
So these still have your hook connectors
Yeah,
on
the horn holes.
Yeah, the horn hooks. And like I said, I got these. Now these all say RDC1, but I got a whole box.
Wow.
I'm telling you, dude, there's this says PRR passenger car, PRR passenger car, passenger car, Vista PRR passenger car, observation. We got an observation car here.
Oh, nice.
Oh, that is nice.
Boy, those are old Athearn units.
Yeah. That's a gorgeous car.
And I don't think I'm ever going to run them. One, I don't have a locomotive that's got a horn coupler on it, so I would have to make and what do they call them? The in-between car.
Transition car. Yeah.
This one here also says observation, but I'm not sure that it is. Oh, it is. All right, so I got 2 observation cars. And then the first one that I showed you is actually it says on here, United States Mail Railway Post Office. So
that
that's
RPO car. The RPOs. Funny thing is, this is a blast from the past. This is actually an American Flyer HO New Haven RPO car.
Oh, wow.
Now, you want to talk about odd coupler? Get a load of that dude.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
That is not a horn hook.
No, it's not.
That is the old American Flyer coupler.
Yeah.
So
now this car has got those on both ends, but my father, because he went ahead and had these pulled behind another locomotive, he actually went ahead and took one end and actually changed it to a horn hook.
Okay.
He actually cut the coupler off and then put the coupler pocket on there, so that you could pull it with the normal train or a normal locomotive. These things are nice. They're fairly heavy. The only problem of it is they're a little bit shorter than scale. They're not 100% scale.
Okay.
But that's what happened in the 40s and 50s. Those are from the early 50s.
Right.
So, hey, I still pull them.
So yeah, I was looking for something the other day, and I came across them again because I haven't seen them in maybe 4 years, and I thought of you, and I figured if you would like them, you're more than welcome. If you know anybody else who wants them, if you don't, throw me a name, and I don't think I'm ever going to use them, so I would rather pass them on than get rid of them.
I'll shoot you an email. I will shoot you an email. Absolutely. Absolutely. Because if nothing else, depending on how many cars are there, what I could possibly even end up doing is, um, shoot, I could probably go ahead and take because like I was saying, I think you may have missed it earlier. I've got an old Tyco Rio Grande set that a buddy of mine had given me, and of course, Tyco back in their infinite wisdom when they went ahead and did everything, it was sealed up.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot get into this thing to do any type of real maintenance on it.
Not without bending the housing.
Yeah, not without really screwing things up. Because trust me, I repaired one of these years ago, and I was like, I am not going through that again because I don't want to ruin it. But that locomotive's been giving me fits, so I may end up having to drop that. The funny thing of it is I've actually got I've got two Brown F units. One of them's a Mantua, the other one's an Athearn, and of course I've got the GG1. So theoretically, I could run three different. Yeah, I could run three different Pennsy passenger trains.
Well, Rodney said to let him know, Ray.
Ray, let me know. Okay. All right. I'll keep that in mind. I'd like to take a look at them. Really take a look and see what's there. Because the funny thing of it is like I said, I was kind of looking on eBay the other day to see if there was any more of those Seamaster cars like I already had. I was amazed. I didn't realize that Seamaster was actually lifelike at one point. But that's where those cars came from. They were Seamaster cars.
Okay.
So, but yeah. That was I might be in the ballpark for those, Rick. Absolutely. So, but yeah, here it is. We were talking about rubber band drives. One of the other things, and of course I didn't show it. That same guy that had that Rio Grande set had an old Santa Fe GP9 that was rubber band driven. I think I mentioned that one on a vlog, or maybe one of the live streams I did earlier this year, that it wasn't running because the universal couplings, which was just a piece of rubber between the motor shaft and the jack shaft that ran the rubber bands, that coupling had gone bad. Well, when I picked up that new soldering station that my brother and I were going to use, I was sitting there trying to use shrink wrap that, and I couldn't get it to work because I think the shrink wrap that I bought was too big. So anyway, I was like, you know what? I want to try something. So I went ahead and put some heat on that coupling, and that sucker sealed right up to the shaft of the motor where it was slipping before. I'm like, well, son of a gun.
That's cool.
So I partially repaired that locomotive. I just haven't finished putting the rubber bands back on it yet. And it's like, I'll get to it. I'm not going to be running that locomotive anytime soon anyway, so because there's really no Santa Fe on this railroad. Sorry, the folks that had this house before me, I think, had the basement sealed up, and when they did, they went ahead and they put an epoxy floor down here, but I don't think they ever ran a dehumidifier or anything, and this stuff never cured. So it's like every once in a while you'll walk around and it feels like you're sticking to the floor. So, but anyway, yeah, red white box. I know, Rodney. That stuff that was the early days of Athearn. That stuff is, well, like I said, I don't know. Yeah, this RDC. It was funny because I'm not going to get it apart. I actually picked a pair of them up at one of the train shows last year. And the thing of it is I really only wanted the one, and the guy that was there, he was packing things up, was like, I'll sell them both to you for this. And I'm like, okay. And I had no idea what I had until I got them home, and I was like, wow, the RDC3 or the RDC3, the big one. This is actually a P1K. It's a Proto 1000. It's a lifelike unit. This way. There we go. This is a lifelike unit, and then of course this one here is that rubber band drive Athearn unit from the 60s. And I was really amazed when I opened it up. I was like, yeah, it's not running. But when I opened it up, I found out that they had just taken the spring that went to the trucks, and they had just unsprung it.
Ah, okay.
That piece of metal that they use.
Yeah.
They had just pulled it off the truck so that it wouldn't run. But of course, the rubber bands weren't there, and I was like, well, I've got rubber bands for it, so I went ahead and put it together. And of course, we all know what the rubber band drives are like with those things. They just don't. They've got so much friction to them. But one of the things that, and I think I've asked this question before, the P1K, the gearing in that thing is set really, really low. I mean, I've got to really put power to that thing to get it to run. I mean, it runs great. It's just, you got to go up to with the 1370 power packs that I use, the MRCs, I've got to run it to like 70-75% to get it anywhere near what the other passenger trains are running at.
Wow.
And I'm thinking, because I went back and I was watching a video from David Popp with his, and I noticed that even his N-scale RDCs really didn't seem like they were running all that quick. And I'm like, well, maybe that was just the way that they were built. Maybe they weren't designed to run real fast. But I'm not sure. I've just never. That's the only thing that I've really ever had with that really bugged me is the fact that I've really got to crank the power up to get it to get the speed out of it.
Right.
But anywho, and we got 8 people floating in here still. Somebody is still sitting here watching us sitting here jack the ball. Come on now. Really, it's 11 o'clock at night. Of course, I know it's not that late for Grandpa. He's on the left coast.
I'm surprised he didn't jump up here by now.
Yeah, he's only 3 hours behind or ahead of or behind us.
He should be just past dinner time.
Yeah, I was gonna say. He's not even paying any attention to us. He's like, yeah, these guys are just yapping at the jaw. Oh man, but there's nights, and I've said this in the vlogs in the past too. There's nights I come down here and I get to the bottom of the steps and I go, "The heck did I do?"
Yeah, me too.
Oh man. So if I keep forgetting. I'm sure I've asked this before, Rick, but has any of your 2 older kids? Obviously, your youngest doesn't have a clue yet. But has your younger kid, or has your older kids taken any interest in the railroads? Or
my daughter likes to. Well, my daughter likes to touch anything, and so I can't tell whether she has the fascination for trains or if she just likes to see things going around and she just wants to touch everything. My son, he's got a short attention span. He likes trains. He loves watching Jerry. As soon as Jerry posts a video online, he loves watching Jerry's videos. Don't ask me why. But I could be sitting on the couch all the way on the other side of the room. If he hears a train, he'll sit there and he'll go, woo, woo. But if he hears Jerry's voice, he runs over and has to watch the video with me. So he loves trains. I don't know what it is. And Jerry's never met him, so it's kind of funny to me. But I did take I needed a step ladder down here for something one day, and I left it out. And he came running down here one day, and he jumped up on the step ladder, and he's pointing, going, "Daddy, trains, trains!" So I turned the train set on, and I was just running the train back and forth because I don't have my loop set yet. And he was watching, and he likes it, and he likes hearing the noises, but I don't think he gets the concept yet, and his attention span is really short. So he'll pay attention to it for a short little while, and then he gets down and he runs back upstairs. So maybe in time. Right now, they're not really focused on it like we are, like us kids
Right.
are. But in time, maybe we'll see.
Well,
Yeah.
how old is he?
My son just turned 2 last month.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, he's
Well,
still young.
My daughter's 5.5. My son is 2, and of course, Bella is a month old in 4 days.
I mean, it was funny because I think I mentioned it. You know, here it is, the first house, which was a townhome that my wife and I moved into before my daughter was born. You know, when we found out that we were going to have my daughter, it's like, hon, I've got something over at my mom's house that I want to bring over for Christmas. And she's like, what's that? I said, well, I've got a model at that point in time. I said, well, I've got a train layout. Oh, what's that? Okay. So my brother and I went ahead, I think it was like late October. You know, we went over to my mom's house. We went down to the basement. We pulled the two 4x8s and the 2x5 out of the basement, all the boxes, and we took the 2-minute drive from my mom's house to my townhouse, and we shoved it into the basement. And him and I he helped me set it up, and then I got up underneath there and had to figure out where all the wiring went. Because the thing got torn down in, let's see. I joined the service in 88, 89. My middle brother graduated high school in 90. 90? Yeah. He graduated middle school in 90. And they wanted to send him to a school that my parents weren't real happy about. So they moved from Baltimore City to Baltimore County to get him out of that school. And it was in 1990 when that layout came down. I was in Charleston, South Carolina when they told me, oh yeah, we're moving. Okay. So here it is from 1990 until 1998 or 1999. Yeah, 1990. Yeah, it was 1999. My daughter was born in March of 99. So that Christmas is when I had it set up. And, you know, here it is. We bring it over in October. My brother helps me set it up on its legs, which at that point in time were just 2x4s. You know, there was each one of them had each 4x8 had 4 legs on the front and the back. So there was 8 legs on each one of them. So he helped me get the thing set up, and then it was up to me to get it working. So here it is. You know, that thing had been sitting in a basement for 9 years. And of course, all the wire tags and everything else that my father had put on were long gone.
Sure.
So I'm underneath of this thing with the lights going, oh, where the heck does that go? I finished setting the thing up at 11:30 on Christmas Eve. Much to the wife's chagrin, because she was like, I need help putting stuff out. Your daughter is asleep. I need help putting stuff. I'm like, I'm almost done. So, you know, I think I actually stopped at one point, helped her put some stuff out, and then I went back downstairs, and then I finally climbed into bed at like midnight. She's like, are you done? I'm like, yeah. Well, you know, we take her down there the next morning. We take her down there Christmas morning after she gets finished with all of her stuff. And it was just like her eyes were just as big as saucers. Here it is. She's, you know, 10 to 8 or 9, 10 months old. And she's just watching everything going on. And of course, then I turned out the lights and all the building lights came on. And she's just enthralled with this. And I'm like, okay, I got her. And that worked up until the time that she started high school. And then, you know, schoolwork became more important, which, you know, and of course I'm going to pull a proud papa moment here, but, you know, here it is. She just finished her junior year of college and she made the dean's list. And I said, well, gee, that's great. I said, the only way I would have ever made dean's list is if I did something wrong.
That's funny.
That's great though. Dean's list in junior year. That's pretty good.
Yeah. especially with the pandemic.
Yeah, sure.
You know, I mean, having to work, you know, having to turn around and do all your schoolwork from home, you know, having your parents basically bugging you you know, it was just, you know, we worked it out. You know, I mean, you know, but you know, and it's funny too because I talk of, you know, my wife is always she supports this because it's a hobby.
Right.
You know, and not only that, but she knows where I'm at.
Sure, exactly. You know, worse hobbies to have, right?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Stuff that you can spend a heck of a lot more money on too. But I mean, I mean, like I said, she'll come down and she'll watch the stuff for a while, but it's not her thing, you know.
Right.
But it's so funny because I can remember, you know, growing up, my grandmother used to help out with the layout. My mom used to help out with the layout. You know, that was the Christmas thing. You know, they would come over. My grandparents would come over to watch us kids while my parents were out Santa shopping.
Yep.
You know, and you know they would come over and we would sit there and we would work on the layout and clean up the buildings. That was before we realized that everything should be dulled and weathered. We were actually knocking the dust off of everything from the year before.
Right.
And now it's like, oh, if it's dusty, hey, that's natural weathering.
Saves you the trouble.
So, but you know, that was the thing. I mean, she used to. In fact, I had heard before her eyesight really got, but she used to paint the HO scale figures. My grandfather and father would buy them undecorated, and she would paint them up.
Okay.
So you know, it was like, wow. I'm sitting there looking at those things now, going, huh? And here it is a person that was like this, you know, and it's like, yeah, okay, you're gonna paint the figures, gotcha. God bless her soul, but my Bailey's is almost gone. Oh wait, I have another bottle.
JD and his whiskey.
Oh, JD, what are we gonna do with you?
Well, Ray, I think I'm going to call it a night.
Yeah, I'm about done too. It's been a long day. I didn't get much sleep last night, knowing I had a bunch of stuff I had to take care of for work this morning. I hate those nights.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But gotcha. I was just putting the RDC back up on the. I appreciate you going ahead and jumping on here, John, and moderating for me, and you know, keeping an eye on things while I was doing that little mini op session.
Oh, no problem. It was a lot of fun.
I appreciate that.
Oh,
Yeah,
sure.
like I said, I did it for Ray once before, but I was never invited back after that.
You know, the invitation is open, Rick. You only get Jeez, man.
All right. Good night, Ray. Rick.
All right, John. Take it easy.
Marty, everybody in chat. Good night.
Yep, take it easy, folks. You all know the deal. Wait for the highball. Green tracks ahead. We'll catch you all next time. Be safe. God bless. See ya.
See ya.